Hey, Dombrowski, and I'm excited about today's show. I'm glad that I have an opportunity to come out there and just kind of give some messages, some information. We're going to talk today a lot about inflation, where inflation's going, how to protect yourself against it. So for the next few minutes, my guest and I are going to have a great conversation. So go grab a cup of coffee, shake somebody, wake them up, let them know that we're going to be live here and to come and listen in for a few minutes. Hey, I am joined today by my guest, Paul Moore. Paul and I have become good friends over the last couple of years. Paul is with Wellings Capital, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about that and his journey and what he does in the real estate space and how he raises private capital and things like that. So I just want to, let you know that information that we bring today is relevant for today. It's not something that is from yesterday, but it's relevant for today. And it's information that's going to help you, going to help your business grow or go to the next level. All I ever ask is that you like this video, you like this live stream, go to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like us, love us on social media. You will find us live on 3 platforms with this Thursday morning live event. And that is Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So let me bring my guest in and let's kick this thing off. Morning, Paul.
Hey, Mike. How are you? How's everybody?
Great. How are you?
Great.
I'm going to answer for my listeners this morning that everybody is just doing great. So it's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it
since
has.
we connected last. And let me ask you this. So since the last time that we talked or that we spent time together, what have you learned?
I have learned that, I just continue to marvel at, Howard Marks, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, those guys, how they continue the wisdom that they have that they got from an earlier generation in many cases has served me so well. And you think, oh, they're stock, they're in Wall Street's casinos. No, not really. The reason they're beating everybody so badly is that they're, I want to honestly say they're above that. And so I learned a lot from them and others like John Templeton, William Green, et cetera, about principles that we can apply to real estate investing.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? And, they might be in stock, but we're in real estate stock, and I've always been a real estate advocate. I've always felt that real estate was the place to be, especially when you're doing passive investing or placing money and hoping to see some stability and some growth. So, and, it has its ups and downs, but so does the stock market. So,
yeah,
hey, Paul, let's give people just a little background on who you are, what you do, where you came from, how you got in this crazy business. I know you got a great story.
Yeah. So I sold my company to a public firm in the 90s, and you probably think he doesn't look old enough to do that. Yeah, I did at 33. And then at 34, I found myself, I thought I'm going to be the best father, best husband, best friend ever when I moved to Virginia and go to the mountains with all these friends who moved together. And I turned out to be the worst version of myself because I wasn't doing what I was created to do. I'm a high energy entrepreneur at 58 still, 25 years later. And I realized, I thought I want to go into the ministry or I wanted to go, be a pastor. But I realized, I was created to do this and I'm loving it. So anyway, got into flipping houses, flipping waterfront lots at Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia, set up a website, did a subdivision, finally figured out how to get into commercial real estate about 11 years ago. And I never looked back.
So what was your favorite asset class? Because I know you got a little journey in commercial real estate too. Mm-hmm. So you started out doing what and you're where today?
Well, in real estate, for sure, start off with a ground up quasi hotel, quasi multifamily that we operated for oil workers in North Dakota for a number of years. And then that led me into, the apartment world. And so I wrote a book on multifamily called The Perfect Investment. Humble, don't you think? Yeah. And that was in 2016. And now I've actually expanded to include asset classes like light industrial, self-storage, mobile home parks, and RV parks. My least favorite asset class is mobile homes. My favorite asset class is mobile home parks tied with self-storage. And I just wrote a book on self-storage called Storing Up Profits.
Hey, so explain that. You said your least favorite and your most favorite's the same thing. How come?
Mobile homes are a residential asset. You buy one mobile home and you rent it out to somebody who sometimes, I'm not saying everybody, sometimes doesn't have good credit. Sometimes they've trashed a number of apartments. One guy we rented to said, hey, he admitted he had trashed a bunch of apartments. His family had been thrown out over and over. So we were smart enough to rent him a mobile home, something that's even more destructible. And so I've done 4 mobile homes individually over the years, and 3 turned into disasters. I mean, two of the 3 were literally carted off to the dump, literally, and they were in fine shape when we started. One after only a few months. But at any rate, and then the 4th one was my mom's. She didn't trash it. Anyway, mobile homes are a terrible investment, in my opinion. Mobile home parks are a fabulous investment because you're renting dirt and land to people who bring their own or buy their own mobile home and put it on there. So you have a co-relationship, a co-tenancy, if you will, with us providing the land, them providing the home. It is a fabulous business model.
So, is there a sweet spot between both of them where you buy the park and you own all the homes on the park too? No?
No, I wouldn't think so. In fact, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who are the very largest and possibly the best real estate investors in the U.S., you could argue, they do a great job analyzing these things, and they don't even want to they love financing mobile home parks. But if you have more than 20 or 25% park-owned homes by the owner, by the company, they don't want to finance it. That's why. I mean, that's how strongly this is a big issue.
Yeah, interesting.
I mean, so look, we have operators who buy parks with 50% park-owned homes, but they go on an immediate path to selling off those homes to the tenants.
Interesting. That all falls in the multifamily bucket, right? And,
yeah.
I'm a multifamily guy. You're a multifamily guy at heart, whether it's self-storage, mobile homes, or workforce housing, which I love, right?
Yeah.
In that bucket, there's a lot of different asset classes. You've got senior living, assisted living, you've got student housing, medical housing. And, there's a lot of different places an investor, a real estate investor, a multifamily investor can spend their time. I think that on our journeys, yours, mine, other people that we know in the space, people just get to a place where they say, man, I feel comfortable with this. I feel comfortable with this asset class. And we learn how to make money. We learn how to help other people make money through passive investments. And I think that's just all part of the learning that we learn over years. So,
right. Absolutely.
Listen, let's shift gears a little bit and kind of talk about inflation. I know that you got a lot to say about inflation, where you think it's headed, where you think we're headed, how to hedge against it, what we should maybe look at, what we should do. So,
yeah, Ronald, one of America's favorite presidents for most is Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan said, "Inflation is as violent as a mugger, as frightening as an armed robber, and as deadly as a hitman." So, my question for you and your audience is: inflation must always be bad? Is that right? Well, here's the thing. I believed that for years. I mean, I grew up in the late 70s and watched, people like grandparents' pension checks that used to, pay for 2 months rent or mortgage now only pay for 2 weeks. And that's not an exaggeration. I watched, it ravage their savings plans, their retirement plans, and people go to the poorhouse for this. The question is it always bad? And the answer is, let's look to Richard Cantillon. He's the great 17th century economist. And Cantillon postulated that inflation benefits those closest to the money. Well, at least the creation of money. So the question, Mike, is who's creating the money and will they benefit? Do I even have to answer? The Federal Reserve and governments are the 2 most powerful agencies on earth. The federal, basically U.S. and other governments, and the central monetary systems of these corresponding countries are the most powerful folks in the world. And I will tell you that they are going to benefit incredibly. And often that's going to be at the expense of the poor and the uninformed. And so the question is, how can you and I and your listeners, your audience, be informed? Here's the answer. In a subdued interest rate environment, and we're talking about right now, we have the lowest interest rates verifiable in 5,000 years of Earth history. And I don't mean today, but I mean in this period of history. And our largest expense is often debt service as commercial real estate owners. Now, if we can get fixed low interest rate debt for a long time, and we can buy assets that are going to have inflation, in other words, multifamily, for example, where the rents go up year in and year out, or self-storage or other asset types, mobile home parks or another type of multifamily does this. Basically, the profits are significant. I mean, think about it. Here's just a quick example. In 1971, I think the average home price was $18,000. I remember that my parents paid for a really nice house with land, $32,000 or so for a really nice house. And so 18,000 was the average. And so the mortgage payment on that, I'm just going to round it off. It might not be right, but let's say it's $150 because interest rates were a little higher then than now. Imagine paying that $150 mortgage payment for 10, 20, or even 30 years. By 2001, at the end of that 30 years, imagine how small that $150 payment felt to somebody who, was making $12,000 a year and now is making $50,000 a year just because of inflation. And that's the power of inflation to actually grow wealth. Now, some of you might argue you're not growing real wealth. You're just staying up with inflation. Well, fine. It's better than leaving your money in a bank or getting, fixed, income products like money markets, etc. I think we all know this. But the power of inflation is best harnessed when using safe debt. I'm sorry, Dave Ramsey. That's what the facts show.
Yeah, boy, you just said a mouthful there, a bunch of things to unpack. First of all, we know that Dave talks about no debt, eliminating your debt, and there's a school of thought around that, and I understand it. But I also learned years and years ago that there's productive debt, and productive debt is in the maybe not the house you live in, but the real estate investment that you own, or that other alternative asset class that you own and may have leverage, right? Because there's some safety in the leverage aspect of it.
Right.
And what I like is what you said about inflation will help your wealth grow. And I think, Paul, the precursor on that, or the pre-qualifier on that, is that inflation will help your wealth grow if you deploy your wealth and you deploy your capital in the right place.
That's exactly right. So what's the right place is the question. And so here's a mouthful. This is one long run-on sentence, or maybe it's two or three. But here's the formula that I would postulate for our listeners. Invest in cash-flowing real estate assets with intrinsic utility. We'll get into that. Finance it with low-interest, fixed-rate, long-term debt. Let others pay off your declining cost mortgage while you deduct the interest. Then safely harvest lazy equity along the way, allowing inflation to increase your cash flow and the value of your assets. And so if I wanted to extract one thing out of this long formula, I would say
it again, would you?
I will. I wish I could put it in the chat. I could actually, if you want me to.
It won't go to the other.
Okay, got you.
It only sit here.
So invest in cash flowing real estate assets with intrinsic utility. Finance these assets with low interest, fixed rate, long-term debt. Let others pay off your declining cost mortgage while you deduct the interest. Safely harvest lazy equity along the way, allowing inflation to increase your cash flow and the value of your assets. So that's a mouthful. But you asked me a question, where do we invest? And I would say, let's align ourselves with the wealthy and powerful. Cantillon effect says align yourself with Federal Reserve and federal governments. And so let's think like wealthy people. What are the Forbes 400 doing? The billionaires of the world? Well, they're investing in commercial real estate to protect and grow their wealth. And they're investing in other things too. But look for assets with intrinsic value. Look for commercial real estate assets with intrinsic value. Now, what's intrinsic value? Michelangelo said, when I see the right block of marble, I don't see a big stone out of a quarry. I see an angel. It's inside, it's trapped in that marble, and I just have to chisel away the excess to get to the angel and set him or her free. I don't know if he said him or her. But anyway, the point is there are assets that have intrinsic value that people don't see, like the mobile home park that had several acres out front where a guy created boat and RV storage, not only for his residents, but for the community. And he made an extra $120,000 a year. That's $10,000 a month. He spent $100,000 to do it. I should have said that. He set up a paved area with a fence on 1 acre. And then he put boat and RVs and extra cars on blocks in the community up there to make his community nicer, so he could rent the community for more money, rent the lots for more. And then he went to Craigslist, etc., and said, "Hey, we've got boat and RV storage here." So $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year.
That they got from an earlier generation in many cases.
Take the $120,000 a year and divide it by a 6% cap rate.
They're in Wall Street.
We just added $2 million to the value of that property. So if they bought that property for $5 million, they financed $3 million, and they had $2 million in equity, they made one value add move to double the value of that equity. That's 100% return on equity from just doing one thing. And the thing is, the mom and pop owner that had it before could have done that too, but they didn't have the desire or the resources or the knowledge to do that. They doubled the value of their equity, and that's without raising rents.
It's crazy. So let me I just want to back up for a minute and ask you, is another way to say intrinsic value saying value add?
Yes, exactly.
Because I think a lot of times investors look at property and they don't see, though, you and I are both creative thinkers. We think outside the box, we think outside the lines, and we see things that most people might not see. Where you talked about it on that property you bought that had 3 extra acres, and you were able to build some self-storage. And, I've seen that. We built garages and carports over the years. And, but it's when you take over a property that's got 50 down units, and that you put $1 million in, but you're going to increase the value $1.5 million.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So that's that value that most people don't see. And if you can do it now, right, during this next season that we're going to go through as a country, as an economy, you're going to see that value grow, which is pretty cool, actually. When you think that through like that, and you can explain it. The other thing that you said that was really cool was you said inflation will help you grow your wealth, which, people don't get that. They get scared of it,
Right.
It's like the value proposition. So,
yeah, the problem is the smart real estate investors see the benefit in it. And so unfortunately, some of them aren't as smart, or some of them are bigger risk takers than you and I at our age. And they're making these really high, evaluations, and they're actually overpaying for the assets, trusting inflation, which is only really hope that the inflation will fix the problem. Well, hope's not a good business strategy. The problem is, whether we do that or not, we have to bid against people who are doing it. So I would say go find intrinsic value. Don't bid against publicly marketed deals that are being bid up to 10 or even 20 or 30% above their real value.
Yeah.
Inflation might save you, but might is not a good business strategy.
How come you always have to, every time we're together, you bring up the fact that we're still only like 40?
Yeah, I know, right?
Bring the age thing up like that.
Yeah, well, anybody who can see me can see I have gray hair, but I will tell you, I started getting gray at 18.
Yeah.
So I'm not as old as I look.
Yeah.
Maybe I am.
They say it's distinguished. So,
yeah.
Hey, so private equity capital, private capitals can take advantage of this intrinsic value and create some more wealth for themselves, whether that's invested in real estate through self-directed IRAs, whether it's money sitting on the sidelines. If it's money sitting on the sidelines, there's other advantages, tax advantages you get to have. IRA or rollovers are great ways to create wealth long term that you probably won't see in other asset classes in this next season. So go ahead.
No, it's true. I mean, I'm thinking about Warren Buffett again. And, he said, if you don't learn to make money while you sleep, you'll have to work until you die. And that's one of the things, that I love about the fact that other people are paying off our debt while we sleep. Oh, and by the way, that debt is declining in value. And oh, by the way, that's a cost for us, so it's not taxable. It's a beautiful thing. And it's going up. I mean, the rents are going up to stay, on pace with inflation. Supply and demand right now in multifamily is out of whack still. I mean, it's going to take 5 years, from what I've heard, at a really good pace to even catch up with all the multifamily that's needed out there. Single families is similar, but man, I mean, I think, it's possible rents will go up more than inflation, although, we can't count on that.
Yeah. It's almost like we got caught off guard. How did we get caught off guard and have such a shortage of housing, right? Where did that come from? Yeah. I mean, I've seen a shortage of housing, a couple times in the past, but I think this is a bigger deficit than we've had in a long time because of what's happening with price increases and compression of cap rates and things like that. It's making it more, noticeable, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. I was sitting in an airport recently and I was chatting with this guy about real estate. He seemed really smart. And he was telling me that he predicted in 2014, publicly predicted that, there was going to be a housing shortage for a long time. And some people thought it was ridiculous, but he's now proven to be true. I asked him who he was. It turned out he's the chief. His name's Doug, and he's the chief economist for Fannie Mae.
Oh, I just happened to run into him in the airport.
Well, we were both going to the same conference, so it wasn't a big surprise that we were flying to this remote location in Belize.
Wow, interesting. Paul, one question for you. I want 3 answers. The 3 things you wish you would have known before you went in the real estate business.
Yeah. Number 1, I wish I would have got into commercial real estate. That's large scale multifamily and other commercial real estate. From the get-go, I wouldn't have known the path in. And in fact, my new book, Storing Up Profits, the last third of the book tells 7 paths to get into commercial real estate sooner than later. So I wish I'd have jumped into commercial sooner. Second, I wish I would have known the difference between investing and speculating. Investing is when your principal is generally safe and you've got a chance to make a return. Speculating is when your principal is not at all safe and you've got a chance to make a return. And when I flushed, my friends and I flushed over $1 million to the bottom of a hole in North Dakota, expecting 50 times as much oil to come out, and we're wrong. Well, we were speculating. Even if we would have been right, we were speculating. Bitcoin is a total speculation. It doesn't mean it's bad. I've got some. The point is, it's important to know the difference and build your wealth on the back of investing and then hope you make money in the speculating. The third thing I wish I would have known would have been the principles from Jay Papasan and Gary Keller laid out in The One Thing. The One Thing tells us that if you chase 2 rabbits, you catch neither. You chase one and you're likely, to get that one. And so, Warren Buffett said, the best investors say no a lot. The very, very best and wealthiest investors say no almost all the time. So it would have been great if I would have learned to say no to distractions and bunny trails at an earlier age.
Yeah. Love Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Read probably all their books. I was an agent for Keller Williams for years.
Oh, wow.
Think Gary is probably one of the smartest guys out there. So,
yeah.
Whatever that's worth. I'd love to have him on this show. So if you have a connection, I'd love that.
I know Jay. I might be able to get you in front of him right now. I just referred him to the We Study Billionaires guys.
Okay.
And he said he couldn't do anything for at least 6 weeks because he's busy with the annual KW Family Conference in February.
Yeah.
Jay and I are actually partnering together to raise money to fight human trafficking, which I recommend everybody consider as a passion.
So probably need to have Jay back on here. I just reached out to Tim Tebow this morning. I'm trying to tweet him back on one of his tweets, but I love his mission and I'm pretty involved in some prison ministry right now. So
good.
That's pretty interesting too, but that's part of God's journey in my life. So, hey, listen, it's been a pleasure this morning. Tell people how they get a hold of you if they want to connect.
They can get hold of us. Like I said, I struggled for years trying to get into commercial real estate. So I created a special report, which is actually a lengthy guide on how to get involved in commercial real estate. You can get that at wellingscapital.com. I forgot the name of my company for a minute. WELLINGS, wellingscapital.com/resources. You can also get my new book on self-storage called Storing Up Profits at Amazon or Bigger Pockets.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you being here. One quick comment on Bitcoin. If anybody wants to pay me for coaching in Bitcoin, I'll take it. If anybody wants to, pay for something in Bitcoin, rent, maybe we'll take it. So as crazy as it may seem, I've seen some people do that, take Bitcoin for payment, and all of a sudden, things change. So kind of interesting, but I agree with you. I think it's, who knows where it's going to go, but you and I are both old school. So
yeah, I have a surprising amount of money in it, considering I railed on it publicly in 2017 on Bigger Pockets.
Interesting. Hey, listen, it's been a pleasure. Always love chatting with you. Hang out with me backstage for a minute.
Oh yeah, you bet, Mike. Thank you. Thanks to everybody.
Yep, you bet. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here today. That was Thursday Morning Live with Paul Moore. We talked about inflation. And if you missed it, you really need to go back, rewind, listen to some of the things that Paul said, because there's a super hedge in inflation, especially if you're partnering with as a passive investor with a sponsor who really understands intrinsic value. If you have questions about that, if you're looking for value add, give me a call. I'll be more than happy to walk through some things with you. If whatever we can do to help you grow that future wealth, grow your potential wealth, certainly would like to do that, because we're walking into a season that I think everybody's going to be a little surprised at some of the things that happen. I kind of drew a line in the sand a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, saying, hey, I think we have 16 to 18 months left before we kind of turn it upside down. So I've seen too many shades of 2007, 2008. So I think the markets are going to change. And are you ready for that ride, or how are you going to hedge yourself against that ride? Thanks for being here this morning. We're here every Thursday morning at 8:30 Central Time. Next week, we'll have another great guest, and look forward to talking to you soon.